You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Dagna Bieda. Dagna, a former software engineer who is now a career coach, is the author of the upcoming book, Brain Refractor. I'm here with Dagna Bieda, who is the author of an upcoming book called Brain Refractor. She's also a career coach. Dagna, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a career coach, and I'm the tough love style of a coach that's been in her clients' shoes. I've moved from being an engineer to coaching engineers to help them pass the really big obstacles that a lot of many engineers face, like imposter syndrome, burnout, lack of communication skills or other people skills, as well as the ability to self-market yourself and advocate. So I help my clients do that. And the book that I'm currently writing, that we'll dive into in a minute, is essentially contains my coaching process that I use to help my clients pass those obstacles.
Without spoiling too much about your upcoming book, Brain Refractor, what will that book be about, and what is the general time frame for the release of your book, if you have one?
Yes, so I plan on publishing the book in Q1 of 2024. So depending on the timing on where you are listening to us right now, is if it's before Q1 2024, I'm still writing. If we passed it and you're listening later in the future, the book is already out, and you can likely find it at my website, themindfuldev.com/book. And so the book really is about the algorithm that you can use in order to refactor, or in other words, reprogram your mind. As a former software engineer and currently a coach, I see a lot of similarities between how apps or computer programs look like, and how, whenever an app has a bug or is behaving not in the way that we'd like, we just go back and alter the code. We can add some lines, we can change some things, move things around, and then it produces the desired behavior. And it works in a very similar way with our minds. So I outline the algorithm for reprogramming your mind in the book, together with some case studies of my clients.
Will your book be self-published, traditionally published, or published via a hybrid press?
So I am going through the self-publishing route, although I do have a professional editor.
And that's common for self-publishing authors to hire their own editor. So you're not weird or unusual in that aspect at all. What are the easiest and most difficult aspects of writing a book for you? And I understand that you're still in the process of writing your book as I'm interviewing you.
Yep. So Aaron, let me tell you, it really feels like learning how to code in many ways. So I remember when I was learning how to code, there were moments when I was frustrated, where I just wanted to cry or like just throw my laptop against the wall because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I felt like, I just want to, move forward, but I don't know what to do next. And writing a book feels in a very similar way, right? So the very first step, the blank page, figuring out what am I going to write about? How do I put all this knowledge that I know that I have in my head? And I've seen the results my clients have gotten. But coaching someone and having a conversation is a different skill than taking what you already know and putting it into paper in a way that's digestible for the reader. So that was a really huge obstacle for me, figure out how to put all that knowledge that I have into writing And then now the second thing is, as my editor got back to me with the feedback on where should we trim, what should we focus on, which ideas are not fully formed or what's not refined yet, going through that draft feels very emotionally challenging. So there are days when I sit down in front of my computer and I have a plan. I'm going to read this particular chapter, redo it, and then I feel an urge to just go up and do laundry or get some snacks or, do anything but editing the book. So then I kind of have to force myself and push through the feelings of discomfort. And it's really a growing pain, right? I have not written a book before. This is the very first one. So it's really that growing pain that I'm going through as an author. So yeah, these are the two things that were really difficult so far.
Prior to becoming a career coach, you were a software engineer. And what types of software did you develop when you were a software engineer?
So I jumped around and I did very many things. I actually started my career studying control engineering and robotics because I wanted to build robots. But part of my curriculum involved software engineering. And so I've been programming microcontrollers in C. I've been programming embedded towers that distribute cell phone signal for LTE in C++. I've been writing distributed apps in Ruby on Rails. I've been also doing some mobile app development in Kotlin, Java, Swift. So there's been many different types of programming that I've done, from very low level to very high level. And that's the reason why I'm really good as a coach, because I can help my clients across different backgrounds and different domains.
You're now a career coach, as you mentioned in your introduction. What types of clients do you coach, and what is your career coaching like?
So the clients that come to me are typically engineers in tech, whether that's software engineers or data engineers, QA, DevOps, any type of engineer that has to do with programming, really come to me. Usually they have 2 or more years of experience. My most experienced client had over 20 years of experience and was 69 years old. And they come from a variety of backgrounds. Some have the traditional went to college background. Some are a bootcamp changer. Some others are self-taught developers. And they come from small companies. They also come from FAANG companies. So it really depends. It's clients from anywhere and everywhere, because my coaching, the way it works, it's really creating a foundation for a fulfilling life supported by their career. I'm not just focused on getting that next job. I am focused on understanding how their internal coding came to be, and then refactoring that for more success, for more fulfillment, for whatever it is that they're looking for. So depending on the client, we initially figure out what are their values and what are their goals, and that becomes our northern star. And as we're going through the coaching, I really want to focus on getting a deep understanding of how they themselves hold themselves back. So what are some thought patterns or beliefs that are part of their internal mental programming that aren't really serving them anymore, and how we can refactor them again for more success, optimizing for whatever outcome they're looking to achieve.
As many authors struggle with imposter syndrome, and you've helped clients as a career coach get past imposter syndrome, what is your best advice for anyone, whether it be an author, a tech engineer, or anyone else, to get past imposter syndrome?
Ooh, I love this question. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the difference between feeling the imposter syndrome versus going through what I call growing pains, right? So whenever it's imposter syndrome, it's really kind of keeping people stuck and making sure they don't progress. But if they are able to reframe what they're experiencing as growing pains, they're more able to push through the discomfort, right? So, if you're experiencing imposter syndrome, you're also likely feeling like you're faking it, right? Like you're putting up performance, you don't deserve to be where you are, doing what you're doing. And then you might have defenses put in place, like psychological defenses, and that will create trouble for you when it comes to like reaching out to people, asking for help, asking for feedback. It's hard to be vulnerable when it's imposter syndrome that's ruling you. But whenever it's the growing pains, you're able to see challenges as opportunities. You're able to take the feedback from other people. Well, first of all, reach out to ask for that feedback, but then you're able to also take that feedback in, whether positive or negative. So with imposter syndrome, it usually triggers overwhelm, procrastination, and things like I described earlier, right? Feeling like, oh, you should be doing something else, not what you're doing, like doing laundry instead of writing a book. So one of the things that I want to encourage people in doing is acknowledge where they are on their journey. Because if they're learning how to write a book, just like I am right now, that's learning a new skill. Of course, it's going to be difficult because it's something new that you don't have proficiency in doing. So what I want to recommend everyone to focus on is to trust yourself in your ability to figure things out as you go. Books, whenever they're created, as well as careers, they're not, people are not born with a book in their hand. They're not born CTO of a successful startup, right? It's a journey. It's a step in a journey. So you have to experience all the steps and trust yourself that regardless or wherever you are, that you'll be able to tackle the challenges that come your way.
If you use a computer to write your book like most authors do nowadays, what brand and model of computer do you use to write your book?
Well, to be honest, I'm just using my MacBook, and I'm writing using a Google Doc, because I find that Google Docs, first of all, it's a familiar tool for me to use, because I've used it in the past in a professional setting. I also use it with my clients whenever we share different documents that we're working together on in terms of understanding their roadblocks or obstacles or what they're going through. And it makes it easier for me to share my content with my editor. Now, I know that my editor tends to print things out whenever they're reading through my content, so it feels more like a book to them. But the way I'm writing it right now is just using Google Doc.
Dagna, you were a wonderful guest for this podcast, and I thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
I enjoyed interviewing Dagna, and I wish her well with her upcoming book. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Facebook at AuthorAAC and on Instagram at AACscribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.